Okay, welcome to another update on ARCHMAGE Rises, the most exciting, best, most detailed role-playing game you're ever going to find. As always, we have Nick here. Wow, he's a mime now. Okay, so this week we decided to do something, different from the last 5 weeks, whereas we were just a bunch of talking heads for the last 5 weeks, and we are going to talk to you about the build, where we're at, how things are going, new features. This is all going to be about the game this week, right, Nick?
Yay!
Yeah, yay. So the first thing I'll draw your attention to is down in the very bottom corner here. Look, it's build 11. There it is. Put a comment on the YouTube. Yeah, and it was like a bunch of weeks ago. It was even before we started doing the team interviews. So I'm just going to share what he wrote, and maybe other people out there feel the same way. And so we want to address that. Okay, so this is what he wrote. He says, a guy funds this game expecting it to be done early 2017. Many months later, the guy and everyone else who sunk money into a never-ending project has to watch videos from a duo of giggling imbeciles discussing everything under the sun except the actual release date. Can't say I enjoyed you and your game, but I certainly learned my lesson. So he's saying that I guess he's not going to pre-order anything from anyone ever because of us. Because of me, actually, specifically. I don't think he has a beef with you, Nick.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
I don't know when this guy pre-ordered the game. It may have been somebody at Gen Con when we went there and started selling pre-orders for the first time. Maybe it was along the way. I don't know. But he's clearly pretty upset. So, so I responded back to him and said, really, if you're that upset, I'll give you a refund. We are continuing to make the game, and I will finish the game. I can't give you an exact date yet on when that is, but I'm doing everything that I can in order to get the game done. If that's not to his liking in terms of timeline, then the only thing I can do is give a refund. So the other thing that I kind of addressed on the Steam forums, I made a post about build 11 and why is build 11 taking so long, and we're going to dig into that right now. Basically because you're getting a ton of stuff. There's like tons of stuff that I didn't know that we would have to make. And what I mean by that is I didn't know is not in the sense of I don't know how to program and then I had to go and learn some programming in order to like add some stuff in. It's more of, wow, in order to support this particular feature, we're going to have to build this subsystem that I didn't think we'd have to build that subsystem. Like I thought about it and I was like, nah, we're not going to need that. But we had to go ahead and ended up having to build that subsystem. So I'm going to go ahead and launch a new game here while we talk about it. We'll skip that pesky intro. Who made that? That was all me. I was very proud of that. I think I whipped that off in like 2 hours.
Right, and we get his frustration and understand it. Like we wanted to be done with it, sooner or farther along sooner as well. But there's a lot of different people in the community that had different ideas that we thought were good and had to implement. For instance, the items, they all have images now, right? And that takes a lot of work on the artist side, on the design side. So the game is richer and better for it, but it's extended the timeline. Before, you wouldn't have had these icons that have been all text. So we understand the frustration, and we hope that everybody agrees that it's worth it. But we just wanted to address that. We're listening to the good feedback or the bad feedback, and we don't want you to think that we're not taking it seriously or taking it to heart.
Yeah, I mean, I read it all, and when somebody tells me he's never going to pre-order a game again because I ripped him off, I take that to heart. I'm a human being sometimes, and I think about it at dinner time and whatever. I'm like, man, oh no, he's really upset. What am I going to do? And so I do want to address one factual issue about this. I don't think saying this is being defensive at all. So he says that I used pre-orders in order to fund the game. That is entirely untrue. The amount of money that we have generated in pre-orders is probably around 1%, at most 1.5% of the money that I have spent building this game. I'm not getting a penny building it. Nick's getting paid, Roger's getting paid, Andrew's getting paid, James is getting paid. I get nothing, and so I hope on the back end when the game is released that I do get paid, and royalty payments go out to all the rest of the people on the team. But as far as the kind of typical scenario that you may have heard of or seen on say Steam Early Access or something like that, where they use pre-orders in order to fund the development, that is not the case here. I'm personally financing this. So when it comes to a situation like, hey, we need to add in an icon-based inventory system, I'm like, oh crap, that's going to cost me another $20,000. Like literally, like it's like going to cost me $20,000. Is that worth it? Yeah, it's worth it. I do think it's worth it. So that's why we made a decision in order to do that. And then that involves a whole bunch of work for Nick and a bunch of work for Roger, et cetera, et cetera. So there you go. Now, let's stop talking about that and talk about the game. So we have, as I mentioned earlier, and also on the Steam forums, we have a ton of new features that we've added on this. So let me just back up a step and say kind of what happened. So in June-ish, I'm like making some comments like, hey, we're going to get a build out to you guys soon. I need to finish off some stuff with the world generation, history generation, and then we're going to wrap it up, make it good, make it play well, and we're going to give it to you.
There was much rejoicing.
When I started going into the game and putting in some of the systems, trying to polish them up and get them ready, one of the big things for me anyway was getting in the well-being system, because the game is just so empty and broken without this well-being system being in it. And I'm like, I got to get this thing in place. And so once I got the well-being system in, then it's like, okay, well, how do you manage your well-being? How does it go up and how does it go down? And so there's different events and things that you can do within the game in order to do that. And two things that affect your well-being are food and alcohol. And then that causes me to go and say, okay, how do we get this food? And if I'm going to design all this food, what if the player can create that food as well? And then that's pretty good, that they can make the food in their own mage tower rather than having to always go to these inns. And then I called up Nick and said, hey, what about this idea? What if every single recipe that you see in the world is something that the player can also make? So rather than designing, here's a list of stuff that's available in inns, here's a list of stuff that the player can make, maybe there's some overlap and maybe there's not. It's just an open system. The recipes exist in the world and the player can make them if they know how and they have the ingredients, or they can't if they don't have those things. And the inns provide a way for you to eat the foods that you can't make yet, either due to skill or resources or whatever. And we were like, hey, that's a pretty good idea. It's a solid system. So then when I was putting that together, I didn't just make the food system and the recipe system. I created a generic recipe system to craft anything that could then exist in the game. So for instance, if it's the exact same like code and layout to create a food recipe that's like this ingredient in, that ingredient in, spits out this food item, requires a kitchen, then to make, say, a sword, which requires, this piece of metal and that piece of wood, and you have to have a forge, bam, and it pops the thing out. And so you can take any number of resources, it can have any kind of skill requirements associated with it. And so this just really gives us a lot of options with making crafting things in the game. This is not Minecraft. This is not a crafting simulator at all. I want to actually minimize the amount of crafting. But as a role player, I want to find a cool sword and I want to make a cool sword. Those are the two things that I want to do in my role-playing game. Find a cool sword, make a cool sword. Now, make a cool sword is like make the basic sword itself, like, I don't know, like a Japanese sword master. I want to make like an awesome sword. And then to enchant it. And enchanting is kind of a recipe-based thing as well. And so rather than just making something that solved the food problem, I made something that solved all those problems. So those are all solved now. But what does it do? It pushes out the date for build 11 because I'm solving all those things. So here's a quick rundown of stuff that is brand new in Build 11 that in June and July, when we were promising it, we never even intended to give you. And I'm not even going to go to detail on them. I'm just going to list them out, and then we're going to show you some actual stuff. So fishing, cooking, alcohol, random inn experiences. Those are things that allow you to do some role playing within the inns. Non-lethal combat, so that's like barroom brawls. The grinder, which we've talked a bit about. Kitchens, different hex activities. So foraging for resources like finding ginger or lemongrass in order to be able to make certain things. Camp, being able to break camp and or make camp, and then to be able to cook while you're in camp. To go hunting in order to get certain kinds of meat. We now have new inventory, which I will show. We have, this is what we call our personal inventory. This here is our travel inventory, and this here is the tower inventory. And it's kind of ugly with these things because who made those icons?
Made, and they're beautiful.
Yeah. Your skills are really coming along, but I'm getting Roger to update those.
That'd be good.
Yeah, so we now have, because we no longer have a text-based inventory, we created a drag and drop inventory system. So now you can move things. Can I move it? Yeah, I can move them into my tower, move it from my tower into my travel, and then back into my personal inventory. So when you're away from your tower, you won't have your tower inventory, and when you are about to go into a dungeon or in those kinds of situations, you leave behind your baggage animals and all that stuff. And so that goes away, and you just have your personal inventory. So the amount of stuff you can personally carry matters. And this is a little bit like when you're about to go into a dungeon in Darkest Dungeon, right? And you're like, okay, I'm gonna take this many torches and that much food and that kind of thing in order to go on my adventure. We're trying to recreate that a bit. It's not going to be exactly like that, but that's kind of the idea. So your personal inventory matters.
Yeah, and preparation is fun. That's one thing we like.
Exactly. Yeah, XCOM, super fun to prepare for the mission. And
right.
So that's what we're going for. And if we miss the mark, then you can tell us, and then
exactly
try and fix it. So having Nick go and create some new tabs and have it all work. We got rid of our transfer window. I can drag this over here and choose how many we're going to do. We had arguments about whether you should have to hold the shift key or not, like in Diablo and other games, and anyways, a bunch of work. Okay, getting back to the list of new stuff. There's a new buffs, but a whole new buff system. In the past, when you got a buff like a certain amount of light or +5 to stealth or something like that, that was one buff was one skill that could be buffed. Due to the food, like some food gives you like 3 different things, +1 to this, +2 to that, +3 to that. So we had to update the buff system in order to be able to take n number of things could be buffed. Do
you want to show us some bacon?
I'm not showing bacon. I can't believe you broke the secret about bacon. I am not going to show the bacon. Is this bacon in here? Did you put that in?
No, it's bottom. I think it's at the bottom.
Oh, okay, good. I'm not doing bacon. Okay, so let's see. Does any of these have? Oh yeah, I'm not doing that.
Found it.
Yeah, I did find it. Anyway, so I eat that, and now I get my buff, and we even updated our tooltips to support the new UI and all the new features, because the tooltips weren't good enough. So now you have a new tooltip, and it tells you where this particular buff is coming from. It's a skill buff, +2 to arcane, so that makes your spells more powerful. And the source is from deep fried agave. I'm not sure how to.
Agave.
Is it agave? Oh, there we go.
I've heard it that way. Yeah.
I've never heard it because I'm in Canada and we don't have it.
Yeah,
so
it's Mexico.
Okay.
It's a little far.
Okay.
Yeah.
So new buff system. And then Nick, just on his own, went in and put dual wielding, because every role-playing game needs dual wielding. We have an entirely new stat system. So there's n number of stats that can be displayed in here. And do we have an example of one?
Yeah, you can put a bow on, I think, or boots.
Put on my boots. Where are my boots?
I don't know. Did I break it? Drag. Just click that. That should work.
There we go. Okay, so I put on those boots, and yeah, we're working with a really broken build because we're right in the middle of development. Oh, and I see there's an error down in the console. Anyway, so you can see here, because I put those boots on, we have Goblin Monster bonus of 2 and a movement speed of 2. So we can have any number of bonuses now being applied to things. And that was a really big deal, because up until this point, you could only bonus the spell school powers and the skills. And what we found out is like, oh, that's not good enough. What if you were to put on a cape of cooking? That should help you. And we didn't have the system that would allow inventory items in order to buff secondary skills. And I'll show you some other things in a second. Okay, I'll keep going with the list. So after the new stats system, we've added in resources. So resources are used in the recipes in order to create them. You can now get resources on a hex. So that is through the foraging and the camping. And we have a new inventory system on hexes now that allow you to store the resources. So if there's a forest, there will be like 35 nuts in that forest, and then you can forage up all those nuts, and then it'll be empty until the trees drop more nuts. So that requires another kind of rewrite of how we do inventory.
Right, and it fits into the seasons too. Some resources will happen only in certain seasons, so you might want to store them up, sell them in the winter, or store them up, for cooking or something like that.
It also enabled us to make, when you drop something on the ground, due to like the baggage animal dying or not having enough room, you drop something on the ground, now it stays. Whereas before it used to just be eliminated, because
Right.
now we have inventory by location. So then we also have those items that are dropped on the ground. They can deteriorate over time, because basically we're trying to build RimWorld at this point. So now we have a new screen. We can't show it to you yet. It's called the news screen. And, if let's say you have a sister in the game and she comes down with cancer or something like that, then we will give you a news thing to say, okay, so your sister is sick. There's no easy way to get that information before. You had to actually go to the town where she was and visit her, and then you would find out she's sick, and we didn't think that played very well. So we had to come up with a new way to get information to the player. So we have a new news screen for that. I talked about the recipe system already. We have also put in a new tool called Text Mesh Pro, just to make the text in the game a lot crisper. Unity's text rendering is kind of crappy, which is surprising for how many years it's been around. But anyway, as usual with Unity, you just get an asset, except they bought the company, didn't they?
Yeah, I think so. They definitely bought the asset, so it's free to everybody now.
Yeah, so it's free now, and so we've been implementing that in order to make the text clearer. By making the text clearer, we can make the text smaller, so it looks less like an iPad game and more like a PC game. We added in auto-eating, so as you're traveling around and doing various things like researching spells, you'll automatically eat based on what's on your inventory. We added in the ability to visit homes. So a long time ago, I was on a Twitch demonstration of the game, and somebody said, "Can I go and visit every single person in the world and kill them?" And I said, "Yeah." And now we have put that in. You can go visit every single person and their home and kill them, if that's what you want to do. Or give them cookies that you baked in your very own kitchen. Okay, so this is a game where you can play any way you want.
Girl Scout Mage.
The Girl Scout Mage, that's right. Okay, we put in that NPCs have their favorite foods. So taking a page out of Stardew Valley, if you want to get in good with somebody and you find out what their favorite food is, you can make them their favorite food. There's a lot of food things in this thing because I've been working on the food system all this time. NPCs now have skills, so you can learn those skills from the NPCs. So that's another way of gaining in power throughout the world. And finally, we have different weapon types and different features based on those weapon types. And maybe, Nick, you can just describe that in a few sentences.
Yeah, maybe you can equip a bow. You just click on left hand. It should... or you just click on the bow. Maybe that's broken. Just click on the bow in your inventory.
Yeah, so there's
there's certain bows. That's a two-handed bow, so it's equipped in both hands.
There's a one-handed bow?
What that could be, I don't know. Tell us if we need one.
Well, that's what the spell Magic Hand is for.
Right.
So you have three hands.
That's awesome. So the bows can only hit, or by default anyway, they can only hit the back row. And so there's some specialization in what kind of weapons that you want to be using. If you're having trouble with, long range people, you'll want to use a bow. Maybe a close range weapon might hit multiple players. So there's, or enemies. So there's a reason that each weapon sort of has its niche. So there's a weapon specialization now.
Yep. So this is just the list that we could come up with just before we decided to shoot this video. There's probably more additional features that we've put into this build that all go above and beyond the stuff that we'd been showing in April and May and June. Mm-hmm. So just to show a little bit more about what we have, I'm going to close down that. So here we are in town, and as I highlight these buildings, they highlight to show you where they are. And Nick, am I going to be able to click on this building and actually visit it?
Oh, you've been asking that for a while. Why not?
Yes, I have. I'm getting you on the air, agreeing to do that. I want to click the buildings and visit them. Just another example of how we've gone GUI as opposed to text-based. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I keep falling into that. Anyway, okay, so let's go to the inn. So we go to the inn. And we have a new thing now. Oh, I didn't even mention it. Takeout. You can buy takeout. So you can eat in or you can get takeout. So I go here and I'm going to buy a rack of ribs. Okay, so I got my rack of ribs and it shows up in my inventory somewhere. I don't know. Did it show up in there? No, probably because of the errors. Anyway.
We've been doing some code merges lately, so.
We were doing coding pretty much up to the minute before we hit record.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, these menu options here of the food, if you buy it under buy food, that goes in your inventory, you can walk around with it, and you can see that this food has already gone rotten because it deteriorates over time. Or
take a bite.
Yeah, I could take a bite of the food. Oh, and I got sick from the food. So if we hover over that, it says I'm nauseous, duration of 1 day because I ate rotten food, plus 2 action points. That's wrong. It's supposed to be minus 2 action points.
That might be worth it.
And plus 10 to miscast. So that means when you go to cast a spell, there's 10% chance that you won't be able to, it won't work. Okay, so then if I go and I drink, we have a list of drinks, and you can create all these too. We haven't built any of the brewing stuff in your castle yet, in your mage tower, but it's coming. Okay, so we have different kinds of alcohol that's available here, different alcoholic amounts, and how much well-being it gives you. So alcohol is a slippery slope that gives you a quick way to get well-being, but it builds up your alcohol. What a bad demo.
You're full.
Well, no, it's because I'm sick.
Oh.
Which is at the bottom, the very last thing after the miscast, cannot eat or drink while nauseous, which makes a lot of sense. So we got to go sleep that off. So let's sleep that off. Okay, he kicked us out.
Uh-oh, it's nighttime.
It's nighttime, yeah. So he kicked us out. We have this new thing where you can wait.
There you go.
Okay, let's go back in the inn. Okay, now we can actually drink. Let's have a cider. Bam. Okay,
Delicious.
So I'm not going to go into everything about it, but you see my blood alcohol level now went up to 4. So we actually track your blood alcohol level, and that has various side effects on you. So we can start pounding back the ciders, and I just got drunk. So I'll be drunk for the next 8 hours, and -4 to perception, persuasion, plus 100% resistance to fear, so that's helpful. Scholarship takes a dive, but I get stronger. That's nice. I lose action points, and this can be removed by sleep. So we can go sleep off our drunkenness. And okay, I'm well rested. My skills are refreshed. Oh, but we got some other things. Now I got a hangover from being drunk. And that can be easily removed by drinking more alcohol, so we can go and do that. This is actually supposed to be really rare, but I was testing it, so it's currently set to 100%. I have an alcohol problem, and I'm going through withdrawal. So I am addicted now to alcohol, and I have -10 to well-being until I drink, and I have to stay dry for 30 days in order for that to go away. But from my exposure to alcohol, I've also received brain damage, and brain damage is permanent.
That's nice.
It never goes away. So yeah, alcohol is a slippery slope. So that's just some examples of the stuff that we've been doing. Is there anything else, Nick, that we were going to show right now?
There's in events.
And yeah, sorry, I forgot about that. Okay, so let's go do the in event. So we got to wait until this place is open again. Okay, so we're going to go in, and I attached it. So now when you go to the inn and you buy something, you eat something, there's a chance that you will get a special event. And they're designed to be special. They're not going to happen all the time. So we get a special event.
Oh, this is testing, so you should probably get it. Uh-oh, you're full.
Yeah, I'm full. Now I don't have enough gold. Well, now I do. Oh, I can't eat right now. This is crazy. What a lousy demo. That's why we shouldn't program right up until the last minute. Okay. There we go. Hey, look. I moved it forward.
Now you're hungry.
Now I'm hungry. Okay, so that's handy. Okay. Here we go. Let's go to the inn again. It's open again. Okay. Let's do this whole thing again. Let's eat some cheese. Okay, now we got an inn event. Okay, so this inn event is the performer. So a performer is bumbling his way through a comedy routine. It's so bad, it's almost funny. Okay, I've personally experienced this. It was really bad. So now we have a series of choices, and this is where we have a little bit of role-playing that you can do within the game. Shout out a snide comment, proving who's funnier. That's a perform check against the perform skill. Instigate nearby patrons to boo them off stage. That's a persuasion. Afterward, praise the performer for their courage. That's also a persuasion, but a different kind of persuasion. Speak with the performer on how the act could be improved. That's a composition skill. Privately tip him 33 gold for the effort. Or draw the performer out back and beat them silly, and that's a strength check. Now, I'm not going to show you what the result of any of these are, because I want to keep that a secret for when this happens to you. And this is where we're trying to bring in some features like an FTL, where you would get random encounters. Now, you would get a random encounter pretty much every single sector that you went to. Ours are going to be more rare than that, but it gives you a chance to experience something, and they play out kind of like the FTL ones. So you'll make your choice, and then you have to live with whatever that choice is. And because of our other systems about relationships and people, and just kind of the living systems involved, there are long-term effects to how you role play out these things. Or you just ignore it and leave. Okay, so I think that was everything we wanted to cover for today.
Yeah.
Okay.
It covers a lot of stuff I don't think people have seen, so let us know what you think. You think it's pretty cool?
Yep. Yeah, so we are continuing to work on Build 11 and getting it out to you. A bad build doesn't serve anyone. So sometimes we have to build a lot of scaffolding and support infrastructure just to support one feature. And that really sucks and makes me cry when I'm not on video. But anyway, we're doing everything we can in order to get this build done and out in people's hands, and then we can move on to other features. But that's what we're solely dedicated to right now. So happy to give everybody an update. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Bye.